going to try and share a nifty, useful snippet which we've been using, and there's Matthew and Steve from the team back there in our games, and kind of maybe have something you can take back with you and implement in your projects if you find it useful to your particular situation. The good thing about this is it doesn't need any setup, doesn't need any customizations. You can integrate it into anything you're doing right now if it suits your purposes. So let's get right to it. A couple of scenarios to put you in the picture. Let's say you've got a game to be released on multiple platforms, right? So say tablet, PC. You have stuff to handle for taps and drags for the tablet, clicks and keyboard stuff for the PC functionality. So you've got two things to manage. You want to include some kind of development cheat or hack. Say you've got a 193 game and you want to change stuff on screen to get particular patterns to test things out, but you don't want that in your final release build. What are you going to do? Debugging stuff. You have a bunch of lines and diagnostic stuff showing up on screen and maybe overlays and whatnot, and you obviously don't want those to show up in your final release, but you need them for development purposes. Bit of a weird thing, but maybe multiple concurrent versions. Say you've got releasing to different geographical regions and you need to exclude some stuff from potentially culturally sensitive features or aspects, and you want to differentiate between them. How are you going to manage stuff? And what is worrying is the balancing act. Many versions, same code base, a bug might force stuff to appear where it shouldn't appear, and you might lose space with your users. What are your options? And in this case, well, separate projects for different platforms or for different versions, alright, but you have to synchronize code. It's a nightmare. No. You can delete unwanted code every time you're going to release and have to recreate it when you want to continue development. You might miss some stuff, delete stuff you don't want to delete. Another nightmare, so no. You might use a bunch of conditional statements or have some nice list of variables you expose in Unity's inspector and tick them on and off and show stuff on screen and then tick it off, build, release and tick it on again, but you might inadvertently leave something gone, or through variables are easily modifiable through code, so by mistake, accidentally or somehow, you still have stuff showing up. Go for constants, alright, true won't turn to false by mistake, but it's a hassle. You have to switch between your Unity interface and want to develop, change true to false, save, switch back to Unity, re-import. It's a bit messy. And you might actually want to exclude code completely from being in your final build. We'll get to that in a second. So this is not about performance optimization. We're not excluding stuff which we don't need because it's bloat, it's bulk. There are specific reasons we don't want them. Security reasons, we want to be sure they're not there, peace of mind, you name it. And we need to really exclude them. And if you allow me to be a bit pompous in my kind of flair, get the reference, you can choose kind of the blue pill and blissfully continue with your own nice traditional orthodox neat code as you will, and nice prim and proper. Or you can, when push comes to shove, realize that in the real world you might have to be a bit kind of hacky, a bit ugly, possibly bad programming practices, but at times you need to get things done and be sure that they're done properly. And in my case, the red pill is going to be my suggestion of using precompiler directives. And for those of you who are not aware about what these are, part of them are basic precompiler directives are instructions to guide the compiler on how to compile your code, right? So during compilation time, you're telling the compiler, look, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. And most commonly, in fact, they're mainly used for conditional compilation. Do not compile this piece of code. Yes, do compile this piece of code. There's more to it, but it's beyond the scope of what I'm trying to say. I'm interested in this conditional compilation, which is based on defines. Defines are simple words. Consider them like precompiler variables, if you wish. Their existence or inexistence will give us a true or false value, kind of like a boolean, which we can mess around with. And to just get to it and give you a simple example, I'm going to flip to my Unity project. I've stripped out a bunch of things from a game of ours and left a very, very, very basic grid of our Games Fund game. It's basically slow laptop. It's a very, very simple connect tree game. But you know the concept, connect tree, right? And I want to try and connect tree because I'm testing stuff out and I don't want to wait for the right color to come down. Or I want a specific combination. And I'd love to be able to click on this and instead of having things fall down, change its color or right click and change something. And the way I went about this is to include a very simple precompiler directive. So the code is not important here, but this snippet allows me to do exactly that. And this simple magenta purple instruction is the actual precompiler directive. So hash if cell edits, where cell edits is my define. If cell edits is defined in my script, then that condition will return true. And this grey code, currently it's grey because cell edits is not defined, will compile or not compile. In this case, it's not going to compile. And in fact, I couldn't do my nice hack in Unity. But if I go up top, I'm cheating there, but I obviously prepared this in advance, and hash define cell edits, that's all it takes. That's a local define. Now I go back down to that section. Monodevelop tells me, look, now this is nice and colorful, that's going to compile. And if I save, go back, fingers crossed it won't take too long with this old machine. Yeah, maybe, so. Come on. Alright. Yeah, alright, fair enough. Yeah, almost done. So, I'll play my game. Yeah. Go. So, if I now play this game, and I drop some stuff, now that hack is active, right? I can right click, left click and do weird stuff. Obviously I don't want that to be in my final release. I want to make absolutely sure that will never be there. So the precompiler directive allows me to exclude that snippet of code from my final release, and that will definitely never show up. Now the slight problem with this is that up here, that is a local define. So if I want to use cell edits as a define throughout my project, I need to include that in every single script. I need to do that. So Unity has some inbuilt pre-processing, inbuilt defines, so stuff like what engine am I running here, maybe operating system, platform. But if I want to do some custom defines, that local define might not be the way to go. And you can have global defines, so I'm going to remove that. And without going into the merits of how to do them, basically there are these two files involved. There's a nice simple script which you can use. I think I heard you mention Prime31 earlier, a couple of hours ago. Love him or hate him has a nice free script which you just include in your project. It's available for everyone. This is it. Alright, you can see what it does, but we don't really care. What that does is gives us this nifty window where we can define our defines, add and remove as necessary, and we've got some nice toggling on and off. So it's just like, let's say it's an extension of the inspector, Unity's inspector. And in my case, I'll enable cell edits, and now that's a global define. It's available through all my project. I save, it will automatically import and whatnot, and populate these two files. One of them is for the actual Unity editor, one of them is for the actual program. And once that's done, I can remember I switched this off, right? Up here. So my local define is no more. Go back here. That's hopefully done by now. Yeah. If I play my game, sometime in the future, yeah, that function is still there. So I say, right, I want a yellow one, oops, and I put that down, and whatever happens. So I can do that kind of stuff. And if I want to build my game and release the game to sell or whatever to whatever client, I just go in there, edit, switch that off, save, and that's done. Peace of mind. There's no way that snippet of code, that ugly hack is going to be included in my game whatsoever. And it's such a simple thing. So that this whole 15 minutes is about this not even this bit up top. If I get to it, this. There's more to precompile directives, but with that simple thing, I hope, you can do a bunch of other stuff and simplify possibly your versioning and other similar issues with just a simple directive. But the trick is to kind of use it in the right place. It's not a replacement for normal conditional statements, it's ugly, it's messy. And it actually excludes code from being compiled. So there are some situations where you want to be doing that. So the scenarios we mentioned earlier, but more specifically to reiterate it, multi-platform code. Maybe some, I don't know, graphics cards or your software, your operating system doesn't recognize certain API calls. You don't want those in your code, you might get some errors and stuff, so exclude them. You don't want to keep multiple versions of your code, so just stick in a precompiled directive for that small snippet and switch on and off. Testing patches, you've got a live system or something you want to do really fast and you might mess stuff up and not get back to the place you were before in case of emergency. Stick your modifications in a conditional precompiler statement, switch it on, try it out. If stuff goes wrong, switch it back off again and revert back to your system. Licensing issues, maybe some code you can use for development purposes, you can use internally, but you can't have it out in your products, in your games. Even if it's not being used by the game. Sometimes having the actual code built into the game is infringing upon some licensing rights. So you use precompiled directives and switch that off. Stuff like that. Anything else, don't use precompiled directives. So use constants and variables. It's neater, more readable, well-indented precompiled directives mess that up for you. And it's more orthodox, right? You can configure systems. So if you use precompiled directives to conditionally exclude code, there's no way you can switch that on from the user end, right? You can't put a config file in there and switch certain features on and off, because precompiled directives cut those out. So wherever possible, use obviously normal systems. But maybe in certain scratch-your-head situations, although it's not a fix or solution, that might be useful for you to kind of siphon off certain aspects of your code and toggle on and off as needed without running the risk of forgetting a whole bunch of scripts everywhere else all over the place. Have one toggle on and off, or as many conditional defines as you might like, and basically use those. But it's messy, it's verging on bad practices, nevertheless you need to get this done. So for maybe your sanity and not worrying about releasing some swear word somewhere along the line, this is not working, bloody code. Kind of stick that in and you're safe and sound. That's all. So this is the magic word, #if and define. Hopefully you can just stick that in your project and version control a bit easier. As I have to say, I don't want to kind of infringe on everyone's time. I'll be here at the end, so talk to me. That's it, basically. Thank you.